SLA is proud to present today's Partner Talk, 5 strategies for showing your value to the C-suite. The sponsor of today's program is LexisNexis. Our speaker is Barbara Hirsch. Barbara is the Director of Information Resources and Knowledge Management at NARA Economic Consulting. She is responsible for the global staff and operations of NARA's Information Resource Center and KM Services. Her experience includes developing a knowledge management system, negotiating global contracts, developing end-user training programs, desktop solutions and intranets, and managing her own consulting firm. Prior to joining the corporate world, Barbara spent 12 years in academia as a tenured faculty member. Barbara will be taking questions at the end of her presentation. If you think of a question during the program, you can send it in through the questions and chat box in your control panel. I'll turn the program over to Barbara. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Carolyn, and good afternoon from New York. I'd like to first thank Mary Frericks and LexisNexis for inviting me to speak. Mary created the slides based on our conversations. I hope that we provide some useful suggestions for all of you. Many of you are already probably quite successful at demonstrating value, so I ask for your patience as I share some of my thoughts based on my experience. I'd like to focus the discussion today on your organization's bottom line, particularly as it relates to all infrastructure departments, that is, finance and accounting, marketing and communications, human capital, HR, IT, tech services, and, of course, knowledge and information services. I suspect that many of you fall into 2 major categories: senior information professionals who are all working diligently to demonstrate value, and the junior staff who aspire to be seniors. This presentation should hopefully provide each of you with some ideas and examples, regardless of your current role. All of you can do research and read many different articles about demonstrating value, and I do recommend that you read material not only from the information literature, but from other case studies. See what other operations groups are doing. Why does it often appear that IT tech services seem to be able to increase their staff? Isn't it exhausting to constantly demonstrate value? Maybe we should change our approach to this challenge. So let's start with the C-suite. I see that as a euphemism for big picture thinking. So often we, the information professionals, are also immersed in what we are doing that we forget to look at the big picture. We need to develop a mindset about how we think of our organization and how we fit into it. I'd like to share this quote that you can see on the screen. Don't tell me what you value, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value. Since the C-suite often does not understand our value and budget accordingly, I think it is time to change the way we present ourselves. Let's start with the goals of most firms. It doesn't matter if the firm manufactures pharmaceuticals, provides financial investment advice, creates a new type of breakfast cereal, offers legal services or economic consulting. The primary goal of most firms is to grow the business. What could that mean for your organization? And it will be different depending on your organization. Get more clients, increase revenue from current clients, acquire competitors, create new products and services. But what does that mean for you? First, if you are the most senior information professional, you need to think like a leader, a strategist. Be proactive. Don't wait for someone to ask you a question. Do you speak with departmental heads or practice heads on a regular basis? Not an email or newsletter. A conversation. Find out what their needs are and provide that information. Do you know who to go to and when? Do you collaborate with the other leaders of operations or infrastructure? How often do you team up with marketing or training or HR? What are they doing? Can you help or possibly help them improve what they are doing? And if you're not a senior in a leadership position, when you do research, do you provide services? Are you also building relationships? Are you just answering the question, or do you understand the context of the request? Do you see opportunities to grow the firm from your vantage point, and are you pushing your manager to proactively go after that? The more information tentacles that go out, the more visibility you and your team have. Here's our first example. Our firm has a new marketing director. The former director was not really interested in collaborating. After speaking with me, this new director told her team to stop trying to do research. They should just contact my IRC team because we had the skills and knowledge to be more effective and efficient. Now, when the practice works on a business development issue, marketing and IRC work together to provide the information needed. We bring together our joint efforts, and the total value is greater than the sum of the parts. I even appointed one of my managers as the liaison with marketing. They have a direct connection to us, and we to them. Here's another example. We partner with our training and development group so that we are an integral part of all firm-wide orientation. We give a separate presentation about our services and resources. We're viewed as part of the firm's foundation. In addition, we're also part of the new staff induction process. Our firm is small enough so that we can actually meet, either in person or virtually, with all new staff. Is it labor-intensive? Of course it is. But my group now has a reputation for being very visible and available. They remember us and contact us. This does mean that sometimes we do training at 10 p.m. so that we can reach our staff in Tokyo, where I don't have any information professionals. We are also involved in all practice-specific training. We pushed for this, and there was some initial resistance, but now it is a given. We realized that everyone thought they knew how to do research, but we wanted them to know what it was really available to them on the desktop versus what resources and services my team could provide. And last, as an example, I try to arrange regular calls, maybe monthly or quarterly, with each of our 6 practice heads and the other 4 operations directors. I have regular calls with all but one of the practice heads, and I speak regularly with each of the other operations directors. We're all constantly working together to improve process and services. It requires vigilance. Of course, after growing the business, the next major focus for the firm might be to continue to thrive. From the firm's perspective, they want to avoid being sued, fined, or even lose their reputation. So they mitigate economic and reputational risk. This is often overlooked by many operations groups. So what does that mean for you? Think bigger than just your information group. Think about this with a view from the C-suite. Are you involved in licensing content, not just for your group, but for the entire firm? Based on the work you do for your internal clients, you are probably in the best position to know how data and research is used in your firm. Do the licenses reflect that? Do you really think legal knows how data is used? They are usually interested in liabilities and warranties. But what about all the business decisions related to licenses? That is usually your expertise. Copyright issues, of course, are a given for us. But it is more than just being the cop telling everyone what they can and cannot do with articles or content from the Internet. Does your firm have a copyright policy? Do you have a relationship with the corporate risk officer? At our firm, there are many separate operating companies within the parent company. The senior leaders of each information group meet monthly to discuss various issues, topics, resources, etc. Many years ago, the topic of this Copyright Clearance Center came up. We all had concerns about copyright, but we didn't think that our individual information budgets should bear the cost of the CCC. After all, any serious violation would affect the parent company. So a colleague and I wrote up a proposal that identified the risk to the parent company. We made an appointment with the chief risk officer and presented our case to the parent to support CCC and multinational print and digital license. After our short and to-the-point presentation, he asked, "Is there any reason why I should not support this?" No one had ever presented him with a rationale. And the parent has been supporting this proposal for the past 10 years. So the firm's risk is mitigated, plus each of the operating companies has the comfort knowing that they can post copies of articles or even textbook chapters on their respective global intranets because of this license. And we can provide an occasional article to an external client, all because of this license. In addition, NERA has an intellectual property practice. If our firm was sued for copyright infringement, I'm sure the reputation of this practice would definitely suffer. Here's another example. Excuse me. Our firm purchases many different analytical software tools which are often managed by our IT group, who may or may not know how we use the tool. I was asked to identify who to contact for training for one of these tools. Not really my job, but we're the information group, so we help our colleagues in training and development. Before I helped set up the training, I thought I should ensure that our license actually allowed multiple access to this tool. Since I wasn't responsible for the license, I was concerned that maybe we purchased a tool for only one individual. And if 15 people attended the training, the vendor might be a bit suspicious. So I asked the vendor for a copy of our license. No one in IT knew where to find the license or who was responsible for it. Well, to my surprise, the license for access was fine. It allowed for 4 concurrent users. But the document had 4 other major problems from a risk perspective. Number 1, it was a click-through web-based license for the users, and our users do not have authority to accept click-through agreements, and we always have a separate written agreement to supersede those click-through agreements. 2, the license did not allow us to create derivative works. We needed the tool to analyze data and provide our analysis in reports to clients, essentially creating derivative works. 3, we were only allowed to use the tool internally, could not use it for client work. Since we only needed the tool for client work, we would be in violation. And 4, there were actually 4 separate agreements, all with different start dates, all were multi-year agreements with automatic renewal clauses. We never sign automatic renewal clauses, or hardly ever, and we try to consolidate all licenses and only consider multi-year agreements if there are major discounts. The vendor was willing to review the license and accept our modifications. Apparently, our IT group just accepted the standard documentation without any question. Any possible risk was averted. The third risk example is our firm has a number of outside consultants who are, quite often, academic or industry experts, who may also work for some of our competitors. I noticed that one of these outside consultants was given access to our firm's electronic journal subscriptions and the intranet, which also includes our firm's intellectual capital site, meaning our KM site, as well as all our internal thought leadership. I questioned the decision in allowing an outside consultant access to all our internal information, which potentially could be shared with a competitor. I saw that as a risk to the firm. I, of course, didn't leave it there. I recommended that we have a strategic meeting with all the internal operations groups, meaning marketing, IT, HR, finance, etc., to discuss how best to deal with these outside consultants. It turns out that each of the 50-plus outside consultants were treated differently by each of the operations groups, and the firm did not have a policy or procedure. I spearheaded the task force to identify a consistent firm-wide policy regarding these outside consultants and how the firm dealt with them regarding all aspects of their interaction with the entire firm. It has taken us 2 years, but we finally have a policy and procedure in place. And again, possible risk has been averted. As the firm considers various ways to grow, the firm needs excellent data and analysis to make good business decisions. For you, that probably falls into at least 2 different categories: providing data and research to requesters and providing data and analysis to management. Both groups need to make good business decisions based on excellent data and analysis. You need to provide actionable data. When you respond with either data or content, do you provide a data dump or some context to make it easier for the decision makers to review, consider alternatives, or ask additional questions? You've gathered all the information. Do you tell them why you included the content? Do you highlight the relevant sections or point out conflicting information? Do you tell them to review the chart on page 49 because it provides the information they need? Do you summarize your findings and provide some context? Uncover meaningful information? Do you review the data, analyze it, provide some insight on what you found or what you didn't find? Have you sorted the information in some logical way, or is it listed randomly? This does require that you and/or your team have a comprehensive understanding of your firm's business and its information needs. Here's the first example. We started to work with the recruiting staff as they review the hiring of potential senior laterals. Those are people who are hired by our firm as very senior consulting staff and already have a well-established consulting practice. My team gradually developed a process to provide research on each of these individuals using a template that we designed. It includes sections for each type of information, a section for sample of expert testimony, a summary of any legal decisions based on their expert reports, information about their professional certifications, summary of any press, both negative and positive, a list of the available articles they've published with an indication of which are readily available and which must be purchased. Plus, we highlight relevant sections in each document. And once in a while, the research includes some personal information that we'd rather not know, information about divorces and house sales, etc. It would be relatively easy to just gather all the information and send them an email with all the information, but the insight we provide helps senior management to sift through all the information quickly and focus on the most relevant so that they can make a decision about the individual. We do similar research if our company is considering acquiring another consulting firm. We provide all the documentation for the research, but we also provide a summary and insight on what we find about the potential acquisition as well as its employees. Are you providing metrics that actually mean something to senior management? In the consulting world, it is often difficult to find a direct link between revenue and the value of operations, whether it's the information resources group or marketing, but other things can be measured. Do the metrics you provide mean anything, or do they require extensive explanations? For example, does telling them how many questions your team actually answered provide any insight into how you help the firm make better business decisions? Does it address the breadth and the depth of the value you provide? And metrics have both a quantitative as well as a qualitative aspect. Be sure that you include both to help the firm make good business decisions. Excuse me. When I first arrived at NERA, some nearly 12 years ago, I asked about metrics and what type of data the firm management wanted or needed. They really didn't know. I suspect because they didn't have any idea about what could be measured. After reviewing all the possible options, I decided to capture use of the IRC based on practice and compare the percentage of use with the percentage of revenue by each of the practices. The results were quite interesting. The percentage of use of the IRC by each of the practices closely reflected the revenue percentage of each of the practices. Quite interesting. The following numbers are just illustrative and not actual percentages. But for example, the global energy practice requests for the IRC were 29% of all requests, and the global energy practice was actually 30% of the firm's revenue, while securities used 37% of our services, and they were 34% of the firm's revenue. I was able to demonstrate that my team was actually working with the various practices to help them with their projects and business development. Just telling them that we did 3,000 requests would have meant nothing to them. We also do IRC exit interviews of staff who leave the firm. We ask them a few questions about the IRC, our services, staff, resources. It is amazing what they find useful. For example, nearly all the respondents think that it is very useful that we talk to them about their requests before we start the research. It helps them identify exactly what they need because we ask relevant, probing questions. They also like all the specialized and individual training and would like more. Senior management was surprised by these results, but has supported our efforts because of this feedback. If you and your team didn't exist, what are the alternatives? You provide various services. If you didn't do this, who would? Yes, end users could do some of this, but the cost, quality, and expertise would be reduced, as would the efficiency and effectiveness. According to our COO, Quality and efficiency usually equal savings. Make sure that your senior management makes decisions based on all the alternatives that you provide. Another interesting qualitative metric comes from new senior staff who are all given personal overview of the IRC services and resources with follow-up several weeks after their arrival. On several occasions recently, newly hired senior consulting staff provided our COO and president with comments like, quote, "I've worked in several other similar organizations and none of them offered the breadth and depth of service that you have here. This is a gem," end quote. You can't buy that type of endorsement. You can only demonstrate what you provide and ensure that it exceeds everyone's needs and expectations. Has your management done a senior survey about all the operations? Are the seniors satisfied with your services and resources? The results of these types of surveys can be extremely informative and help make better decisions about operation groups. And they help you decide on the information strategy for your firm. As a rule, information professionals are usually in the perfect position to see the big picture, or what is going on in the firm from two different perspectives. We provide information to the staff to help them do their job, help research new drugs, check to see if there is an existing patent on a new chemical formula, identify a new financial instrument, or analyze an industry or company to help them succeed. We are also part of a firm's service organization or infrastructure, and also see how the firm operates behind the scenes, how it pays bills, what is being purchased, how it disseminates information via the intranet, how it hires new staff. This puts us in the perfect position to be an integral business partner. How, you may ask? Become the strategic information consultant to the firm. Take ownership of the firm's content. In large companies, leverage the spend, consolidate licenses. If you don't have the confidence and expertise, either develop it quickly or recommend that management hires a market data consultant to help analyze the firm's situation. Is the firm leaving money on the table? Have you reviewed the payables from your accounts payable department? Is there an opportunity to leverage spend by coordinating licenses with the same vendor? Be the data expert for each department in practice. If a new product or tool becomes available, make sure you are involved in the evaluation and provide information on product competitors. Create a comparison chart listing all the attributes of this new product and compare those attributes to those from other similar products. Circulate that to the practice. Provide your expert opinion and work with them. Raise awareness about information overload. Recommend software to assist the firm and all its practices to filter news. When you talk with the department's leaders or seniors, what are their biggest challenges on getting the most recent information? Help them with their alerts. Show your topic or subject expertise. Partner with them and help them make their jobs easier. Build relationships of equals. Because we often work with junior staff, build that relationship from the bottom up. Many of the junior staff may eventually become seniors, and they will have knowledge about you and your services because they were a happy customer. Don't be complacent and wait for someone to ask you a question. That's like being a waiter or waitress where you wait for someone to give you their food order. Go after it. Find ways to proactively provide relevant information. Oftentimes we are perceived as admins. How many times has someone said, "Oh, my admin can do that"? If the admin can do what you are doing, rethink how you are perceived. What are you doing that makes them think that you are an admin and not the information consultant? Provide a service, but don't be a servant. Think strategically about what the firm or department might need or want and provide it to them. Discuss how it meets their needs or how you can improve on what they need. Be the go-to person. Everyone should know that you are efficient. You are the internal expert. Partnerships create value. Make sure that you develop that partnership. Because most staff should come to you and your team, you are in the perfect position, again, to connect people to information and knowledge, which is crucial to building a balanced and sustainable organization. Who do people go to for information they need? The person in the next cube, or the individual best suited to the task. Make sure that you are known as the best suited for the task. You are their partner. Here's an example. Our global energy practice often responds to RFPs, tenders and panels or frameworks, particularly in Asia and Europe. We've been working with the practice in some of the local offices, but the process was not a global effort. We spoke with the head of the practice and identified ways that could make this a global process. The practice came back to us and asked us to be the point of contact for all RFPs, all tenders, and all panels globally. We are now managing the entire process, which includes sending out information about relevant tenders by region and industry to those who sign up for those regions or industries, collecting all the relevant legal documents that are necessary to complete some of the RFP or panel applications. While this is a major undertaking, we are an integral part of the department and their processes. We know the firm has successfully been granted projects based on our involvement in this process. Another example, a new senior staff member joined the firm and we gave her the usual 45 to 60-minute training on our services and resources. We mentioned various publications and possible alerts, and she said that she would set them up herself. After a week or two, we contacted her to see if everything was going well, and she indicated that some of the alerts were repetitive and could we improve on the process. Of course we could. We went in, fixed the search parameters, and now we have a very happy client. But she may not have contacted us. We proactively did the follow-up. Here's another example with our marketing department. The new director wanted us to review some new web tool that would aggregate news from the web and other publications where you needed a separate subscription to read the full text. I was not familiar with this tool, but said I'd gladly review it. I also recommended that we set up a special marketing demo of the news tool that is already available within our firm. We knew that our existing marketing staff did not make good use of this tool, nor did they really know how to use it effectively. This tool already provided the aggregation of the news, incorporating the web, but also incorporating the full text of other news sources. The marketing director was thrilled with the demo, thought it was better than the product she initially recommended. We saved money, but also showed that we already had a sophisticated tool that provided the information they needed, making us an integral business partner with marketing. To get to the fifth item, I suspect that if you ask anyone in a C-suite position, they will all tell you that they expect high-level or high-quality service from everyone who works in the firm. What does that mean for you? Answer what they actually need, not what they ask for. Based on my experience, this is the old research interview from our old library school days. Don't just answer the question. Find out what they really need. Understand the context, nuance of how they plan to use the information. Is this for business development, a proposal, for expert testimony, for some experiment? Provide guidance on data quality and the resources they need for their critical analysis. Do you provide guidance on reliability and authoritativeness? Do you help everyone understand the difference between fact and fiction? Do your end users know when to use social media information and when to use an analyst report? Do you work with vendors and provide them with feedback about unreliable sources? Here's an example. The staff at NERA know that they need to work with us to purchase external content because we review all the licenses. So a junior researcher sent us a website and indicated that he wanted to purchase data from this site. The junior was insistent that we purchase data from this specific site. He checked and he knew there was nothing else out there. The cost was $2,000. We reviewed the site. We're concerned about the reliability of the site because we were unable to verify the management location or any executives or a phone number or even an address, nothing. We spoke with the senior project manager indicating our concern about the site's reliability and authoritativeness and provided an alternative source. A bit more expensive, but we could verify reliability. We built credibility. My favorite example in this area is the request for a D&B report. Whenever we get one of those, we always ask, what information are you looking for? We let them know that we want to provide the information from the most reliable source for the lowest price in the most timely manner. Is there a specific reason why they need a D&B report? For us at NERA, the opposing expert may be using the same source, so we need to provide the information from the same source for comparison. But we also provide information about alternative sources that may actually be more reliable for our purposes. If they are looking for company financials, we provide or help them find a 10K. If they need private company financials, we use our resources to help those, to provide those. However, if they need to know how a company pays its bills, We then definitely provide them with a D&B. I often use this next example when I do orientations. And this is a true story, we were asked to verify some historical stock pricing tables used by the opposition in a case. The opposition used one of the free financial websites, which, we showed, used the wrong CUSIP or ticker to get the historical pricing information. We used more reliable sources such as FactSet or Bloomberg, and our side won the case, of course. So, to review, what are the demonstrated must-haves? Proactive approach, anticipate information needs, be a problem solver. What are the different ways, alternatives to solve this question or situation? Be sure to provide alternatives. Strong evaluation skills, critical skills for reviewing resources, processes, situations. Don't be afraid to beat up on products and vendors. Help them improve their products so that you and your staff can promote using a highly reliable and authoritative tool. Strong listening and observation skills. Adaptability, flexibility for any situation. Learn on the fly. Think beyond the small information world and think big picture. Strong communication skills are a must. You and your internal clients, you and senior management, you and your fellow operations and operations colleagues, you and your vendors. The need to haves, clearly resource knowledge and skills, analytical skills, summarizing ability, presentation skills for results, confidence to work with all levels within your organization. You are their equal. Change their perception of you if it is misguided. An excellent grasp of the firm's priorities. The nice to have, your 30-second elevator speech. This is all about your organization and its needs, not just about your information group. You must establish yourself as the strategic information consultant that assists the firm to grow the business, ensures that the firm is able to mitigate risk, provides reliable data and analysis to make good business decisions, becomes an integral business partner, insists on high-level quality service from your staff and your colleagues. I'd like to quote Arthur C. Clarke, the man behind 2001: A Space Odyssey, and end with, any sufficiently advanced technology should be indistinguishable from magic. I think that we could paraphrase that to be, any sufficiently advanced information services should be indistinguishable from magic. I would like to mention one white paper. LexisNexis has a white paper that focuses on how information professionals add value to business. Just email Mary to receive your copy. Larry Prusak tells us that people learn by stories and doing. I hope that some of my stories help you to demonstrate value. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Attendees, if you have questions, please submit them through the questions and chat box in your control panel. Thank you for the questions you've submitted so far. We have a question about licensing. Licensing issues are huge risk factors, and too many institutions avoid deep analysis of license agreements because it's cumbersome and no one has the time. Barbara, what tools do you recommend to help resource managers keep track of license agreements, renewal dates, vendor contact information, etc.?
I'm one of those people that doesn't recommend specific vendors. There are a ton of them out there. There are a few of them out there that have been used. For me, the easiest thing is to not have any automatic renewal clauses, so I never have to remember when they're up for renewal. It's the vendor's responsibility. That's sort of one of my little tricks. And even if I'm forced to sign an automatic renewal clause, I cancel it when I sign the agreement so that it's on them. So I try to deal with it that way. There are a few tools that are out there from various vendors. Some people have created their own. I'm never one to do that because our IT groups are never quite as diligent about doing that. There are some tools, and if you want to contact me offline, I'll gladly share that.
Thank you. Here's a question. How many are on your team or staff?
Yes, there is a total of 11 of us, but only 7, well, let's exclude me. I've got one person who's our KM manager who is involved in that piece of it. I have 6 people globally. 7 people globally. We are 24/5. I've got people in the U.S. and the East Coast, West Coast, as well as people in London and someone in Australia.
Barbara, what's the best method for getting on someone's calendar without constantly having the meetings canceled?
Ew. I think there has to be a reason for the meeting, or some motivation, or some recommendation, or somebody to sort of slither through to get through and say, you know, I have something for you. I'd like to discuss this. A reason that's just, I just want to talk. Talking you can do, meet them in the bathroom or the kitchen or someplace else, and if you're not in that same location, find some other way. But you have to have a reason and a purpose. So here's what I can do for you. Here's how I can help you. So that it's not about you and the information, it's about helping them make some decisions. And sometimes that you need to do some behind-the-scenes detective work to see what it is that will get them to that purpose. But I think most of it is about not just going and let me tell you about the information group. No, it's about what can I do for you, what my team and I can do for you to help you improve what you're doing.
Thank you, Barbara. Here's a question. What do you do when you do the reference interview to get a better understanding and the person tells you you don't need to know or it's confidential?
Okay. That never happens to us. I think I'd probably, my immediate reaction was I can't provide you with reliable, authoritative information if I don't understand the context. I mean, there are times when people can't tell me who the client is, so if they don't tell me who the client is or the company, I can't give them financials, right? So sometimes you have to pose it in a way that says, I'm not trying to interfere, I am trying to get the most reliable, authoritative information for you. And I can do that if, for example, I'll use this as an example. Sometimes we have to purchase data, whether it's pricing for I don't know, it could be pricing for drugs or wholesale pricing for drugs, or we may need to know information about how the sales numbers over time of cell phones. If when I buy that data from a vendor or from whoever produces it, I have to sign a license to purchase that data. I have to have a context. Very often they will say to me, how is this data going to be used? I have to provide that information. So sometimes I don't have the luxury of saying, okay, don't tell me, I'll just get you what I can find with the information you've given me. So sometimes it's maybe finding some other way to say, is there some information you can provide me so that I can get you the most reliable, authoritative information, and making sure that you can use the information as you need to use it. Because if it becomes public, and in the legal situation, we have to say, does it have a protective order? How can I protect the information from being put out in the public if it's a litigation case? So sometimes it's about telling them how you can help them. And sometimes you don't get to all the people all the time. You know, there's always an 80-20 rule.
Thank you. Here's another question. I know of a senior librarian who reached out to senior management in a Fortune 500 company to save money by consolidating many, many licenses across many countries. She's excellent with negotiations with vendors and did it for many years. The senior management decided not to do this. In addition, her position was eliminated within 3 months. A much less experienced information professional replaced her to head up the library. Do you think she overstepped her role? She did everything right. How do you overcome the understanding that this is not our purview? Is this prejudice or just being naive?
Oh, that's, I think, you know, every situation is different. I suspect that, you know, and we've all been there, including me, you know, you step on the wrong toe. Somebody, you know, that happens. So I guess sometimes you have to make sure that you understand the context of what's going on, or maybe do it in little stages. I don't know. They are minefields out there, and there are people in you know, we're still dealing with the C-suite people, and some of them may have particular ways of going about it and think that someone has too much power, or that they're, you know, that they're stepping on their toes. That's a very difficult one, and I sympathize with all of us trying to do the right thing. So sometimes we have to think about it, and you have to live with yourself as to what you're doing the right thing I don't know what other than to bemoan the fact that there are some managers and some C-suite people who are just not nice.
Next question. My manager doesn't have a library information background. Any advice on how to manage up or get her on board with changes to our approach to services?
Yeah. I think that maybe exposing that person to other information professionals and what's going on in the business, doing some benchmarking, finding out from your colleagues. And a lot of this is not going to be in writing. It's about talking. Who are your firm's competitors and what are they doing? Are you at the forefront or are you behind the 8 ball? How much do your competitors have with this, provide this kind of service? And being able to sort of present that as this will help everybody, including you. So presenting it in that kind of a context may actually help. Providing them some guidelines, getting them to listen to a couple of webinars or getting them involved in some organizations, some very senior organizations that actually show how we add value. I think many of us, and we've all been in situations where the people did not have information backgrounds and they were managing, and that's also why so often you will see, IRCs or information centers are, tied in with facilities or, or attached to some maintenance group or whatever in the hierarchy. And I think sometimes it's because the people who don't know who we are or they think of us as admins, and it's about changing that perception. And it's not something that happens overnight. But it's convincing them and showing them, are we going to be successful 100% of the time? No, of course not. But it's showing them where we add value, not from what we do, but from the firm's perspective. And that's a long-term process. It doesn't happen overnight. I can't tell you that I've been successful 100% of the time. It's developmental. But I think part of it is doing some benchmarking. We all don't do it enough, and sometimes we can't share all this information. But I do think that benchmarking and showing what our competitors are doing, and that's when I say these senior people that have joined our firm recently, I was flabbergasted. I heard about it second from somebody who was at the meeting, and they literally said, oh my goodness, I've worked in 3 or 4 different places. Nobody offered the services, the breadth and depth of what you have here. Who knew? So now, of course, it's one of those examples that I love to put in front of everybody. But it's true that when you get people who say, oh, when I worked in such and such a place, I had this, this, and this. It's very different than, oh my goodness, you guys are better than any place I've ever worked. It's about benchmarking. So that can help.
Thank you, Barbara. Barbara, do you have any recommendations specifically for promoting services to remote users?
Oh, the bane of my existence. Yes, absolutely. You actually have to go out of your way. It's easy for my staff, and I have a staff member in D.C. It's easy for her to do the walk-around, right? So you have to do the virtual walk-around. And it's about whether it's providing them with talking to them, doing webinars, doing little presentations. 9 o'clock at night when I'm presenting to the Tokyo office on a webinar is a challenge, but I do it. And finding ways to get to them, to keep connecting with them, sending them emails, keep proactively going to them, finding out what they need. That is really, really important. It's actually more difficult for remote locations than it is for the places where you physically are. So that is it's a big challenge, but I think it's that constant reminder. What can we do for you? What are you working on? Sometimes it's about tracking what kind of projects, or depending on where you work. In the consulting world, we have projects. Finding out new projects start. Can we help you? What can we do? Is there something you need? Are you finding what you need with the resources on the intranet? You need some alerts set up. It's being very proactive, more so with them than with the people in your own location.
Thank you. Do you have use a tool to help visualize the value of comparative resources to gain buy-in from the C-suite?
Run that by me again.
The question is, do you use a tool to help visualize the value of comparative resources to gain buy-in from the C-suite? I guess she's asking.
No.
Okay.
I get that. I just wasn't. I didn't hear it originally. I live by Excel, so I I love Excel, so I often think of columns and rows. So if I'm looking at a tool, I may look at, if I were to compare, let's say, Bloomberg to FactSet to some other, to CapIQ, to name three. I'd create a tool with all the features of each one of them and which one has what, okay? There are lots of infographic tools that are out there now that I think are really doing some wonderful work about comparisons. I don't have that skill yet, although I'd love to work on some infographic skills to be able to tell a story with pictures, visuals. I think people read visuals as opposed to reading 3 pages of text, particularly C-suite. So I don't particularly have a tool, but I work in Excel, and by putting all those attributes even in categories and putting them in an Excel spreadsheet comparatively, if you're saying which one has historical stock prices, I can go down the list and say yes, yes, yes. Who has bond prices? Yes, yes, no. And it becomes a very visual thing. It's not very sophisticated, but it works. And again, it works here at NERA because everybody here is a quantitative person, and they live in Excel and Access and Stata and SAS and numerical analyses. So I don't have difficulties showing that in Excel. That seems to work for them. There may be other tools that I'm just not familiar with, nor have I developed those skills, much to my dismay. I wish I could be more helpful with that one.
Barbara, how do you go about organizing exit interviews?
So part of it has to do with our firm. Because we're a consulting firm and a lot of our junior staff in particular are here 2 to 3 years, our HR is partnering again. They send out a weekly memo of who's coming and who's going. That's how my staff keeps track of who's coming and going. Internally within the IRC, I keep a spreadsheet that everybody has access to, like our group calendar, and it tells everybody the new people that are coming, and everybody signs in to train the new people, depending on their location. We do the same with people who are leaving. If there were 3 people who were leaving from San Francisco, one of my staff members is responsible for contacting them and setting up this interview. And it's a short interview. We have maybe 5 or 6 questions. What resources have they found really useful? What services did they think were useful? If there was one thing they wanted to change about the IRC, what would it be? Those kinds of questions. So because our HR group tells us who's leaving, and on occasion we don't get them all, because somebody may be leaving very quickly, but as a rule we know at least 2 weeks notice, and we talk with them. I talk with most of the seniors, and my senior manager will actually talk with everybody else, and so she gets, in the U.S., she gets a very good picture of what they need and what they don't need. And it's amazing, and these are people who are not being fired, okay? These are people who are moving on to either going to graduate school, going to get their PhD, or going to law school. So they're leaving to pursue their next set of goals. And so we get quite a bit of insight from them about what's helpful, what's not helpful, they all say, well, I'd like to have this on my desktop. And then you say, okay, well, it costs this much per person. And then they go, oh, okay, we don't need it, because they understand maybe $25,000 a year for a Bloomberg terminal or something like that. They go, oh, okay, we'll just use the way we have it. And so it's a good explanation. And we found, really, it helps me identify strategies for the coming year when I consolidate all that information.
Thanks, Barbara. A few more questions here. How would you work with a boss who doesn't think you should reach outside your immediate colleagues? The caveat here is the person asking is an embedded librarian.
Yeah, well, I in all honesty, I once had somebody tell me, I shouldn't even talk to other people. I should just, send them emails and not build relationships, right? That's, I think, a difficult a challenge. However, this is if you're embedded, then in my gut reaction is get somebody with whom you're embedded to request that you do it. Because if you're embedded, you're working for them. You're meeting their needs. And if they need that information, then maybe that will be a way to bypass that. I'm not sure why someone would tell you not to contact anybody else. I'm challenged by that. We all learn. I really believe that the total is always greater than the sum of the parts. I try to get all of us here if one of us doesn't know the answer to something, we're all expected to ask each other first. Does anybody know where this information might be? How I can get to it? Anybody have a clue? And we get asked really all sorts of bizarre questions. It's expected that we talk to each other. So I'm puzzled by that attitude. I would just try to get someone within that group to ask you to pursue it outside the group, so that you could get some insight. Maybe there are some Chinese walls or some competitiveness, and they don't want anyone else to know what they're doing. And I mean, I understand that. Sometimes you can go, sort of call up a colleague. Don't put it in an email. Call up a colleague. Hey, you have any clues about X, Y, and Z? That's a challenge. I'm always surprised by people saying, don't contact anybody else. Don't talk to anybody else. I find that to be quite interesting. Not in keeping with the philosophy of what we're doing.
Question, do you ever turn away requests because it's not possible to provide strategic analysis within a too short deadline?
Yes. So if we're doing strategic analysis that takes a bit of time, we will say we can't meet your deadline because we are literally inundated and you came to us too late. And then what I often do is talk to their manager or who is more senior and just explain what the situation is. I don't leave it there. I actually, whether it's a junior staff member or a senior staff member, we talk this out. And I will say, within the last 6 or 7 years, it is rare that someone gives us an emergency that is just because of their lack of management, their poor managing skills and poor project management skills. Do we get emergencies? Sure. Someone's going to be deposed tomorrow, in the next hour. We need this right now. Okay, we do that. We will amass every possible way. 5 people will work on it and get it done. But for the most part, we've said no to people. Just say, it can't be done. We can't do this for you. Not in this short amount of time. We don't have the staffing to manage this on such short notice. We said no. They learn the next time. It's rare that they don't figure that out the next time.
Hey, Stella would like to know, if the C-suite is a university budget committee, how would you adjust your advice?
I'm sorry. I spent so many years in academia. If the C-suite is the university budget committee, the rest, I was laughing. I'm sorry. What was the rest of the question?
It is, how would you adjust your advice, or would you adjust your advice?
I wouldn't adjust my advice. I spent too many years in academia. They just work more slowly than a corporation. I think that it's about building relationships and building a trust, so that when you propose a budget, it's I will give a quote. I will tell everybody a quote that I think is really something I learned at an SLA conference many, many years ago, 2 times ago in San Antonio. The speaker was someone named Alan Kay. He's one of the people who I believe was involved in the early Apple production of the Apple computer. And he said at that time, if you only know one solution to a problem, you don't understand the problem. And from my perspective, that is, I provide alternatives. Here are the 3 different ways we can handle this. This is the budget. This is what you get when you do this. These are the things you can do if you do this. This is how this can be handled and managed. And I think it's by providing, and sometimes you have to suck it up and go, okay, this is what you want. Fine, you'll have to live with it. To live with the consequences. And then somebody says, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, I can't use it. Oh, I can't this. So I think sometimes you have to manage that, manage up, and work with them and really educate them about what's possible. But if you've built that relationship and you know who those people are, I don't want to say suck up to them, but, what is it that you can do to help them, give them, and make informed decisions? I would treat them the same way. Absolutely. I don't care how many PhDs they have.
How much of the admin perception is gender-based in your opinion?
It doesn't help. Come on, programs like Mad Men doesn't help with everybody, the women being admins. But I don't think. I think that I've seen guys be in that position, as men as well as women. If people they see us do that, I think they. I mean, I've had senior management say to me, oh, well, an admin can do that. Oh, you don't want to see the steam coming out of my ears. Now, sometimes they are right, because the things that the staff is doing are administrative. It's almost like you want to say, do that behind closed doors. Don't let anybody know that you're doing that. We know that we have to do what we all have those tendencies to want to make sure everything's right. But that's not our purpose. Our purpose really is to help the firm grow the business, making sure that every book is cataloged properly. Nobody cares. Management surely doesn't care. We may care, but you can't promote that. You just get that done some other way. It's not a big issue. So I think that if they see us as admins and they perceive us as admins, I think it's serious. Is it, if you look at the number of people, I don't know what the current SLA statistics are about people in the information profession, men, women, managerial roles. I'm assuming it's still more men than women, but I don't know what that number is. Whether it's men or women, there are men who are in this business as well. I think we just have to be very, very careful. We have to change that misguided perception. Let's face it, in the old days when the internet didn't exist, people needed to come to us. Now with the internet, everybody thinks they can do the research. And let's face it, if they can do it, if that's all we're doing, that's what they see us doing, anybody can do it. Our value is greater than that, and it's much more important for us to focus on where we add value beyond. Yes, we can teach them how to search the deep web and how to do all of that, but our value is much greater than just searching the web. That's what they do. They don't need us for that. Whether it's right or wrong, whether they're doing it well or not, it doesn't matter. They all think that they can do that. They all think that they can search and do research, and it's our job to help them and show them that that's not their job. Their job is to analyze and do whatever our companies tell them to do, whether it's create drugs or create pharmaceuticals or whatever, or be consultants or analysts. But we can provide that help for them. So it's a little bit of a balance act, but it's a thing that I think we all should be concerned about, because I think too many of us are perceived that way.
Okay, we have a couple more questions, and then the hour will be up. Barbara, have you ever encountered a situation where a solo info pro cuts back on promotion because of too much work, a big demand, expecting that management will not add information staff? Any advice?
Oh, I've been there many years ago. Yes, I think you have to prioritize or ask management to help you prioritize whoever you answer to and say, okay, I have this many requests. Now, I can do this many. If you want, I can outsource it to get somebody else to do it. We can pay them for that. Or, part of me wants to say they don't pay you enough to make those decisions. I want to be able to answer 100%, but there are only X number of hours in the day. Even if I work 10 or 12 hours a day, I couldn't get them all done as a single person. So sometimes that may mean maybe you don't do all those back office things, you just do all the research. Maybe that takes away, maybe it's, well, okay, then I can't manage the subscription services, or I can't do this, or I can't do this. Look at what you're doing and focus on doing the research for growing the business, mitigating risk, providing good data and analysis, be an integral business partner, and high quality work. And what are the things that just don't answer to that? They want their subscriptions. Okay, well, fine. I can't manage IDs. I can't. That's an admin job. I can't do that. I need to focus on the research. And if I can't get the research, should I do the research based on the level of the staff member? So if the CEO or a senior person gives a question, that's my priority, or help me prioritize because I can't do it, and let them make those decisions. Maybe that will help them see that if they want all the answers, they want all these questions answered, they're going to have to focus it. They're going to have to either help you get more staff or let you distinguish between what gets done and what doesn't get done.
Okay, we are at the hour, but one more question I think we have time for. What tools do you use for customizing and delivering content or research results to your clients?
Two things. We use a tool for research, for keeping all the research requests in one tool, which is great because then everything is in one place. And we use Word and Excel. We create little templates. We don't use a tool per se. I will admit I haven't gone out looking for them because I just say, look, guys, come up with a template. Here's an outline. Fill in the blanks. If we're doing research on a particular person or on a particular area, fill it in. So we're trying to, are we expert at it yet? No. We're trying to come up with some templates. The problem is sometimes for us, our research doesn't fall into all the different categories, but we use Word and we just use that as a format. We also use some standard text that we sort of plug in that say, for the research that we're doing, this is the outline, these are the flags that you need to know about. So we find some ways to make it easy, but we use just outline stuff from Word and Excel.
Okay, thank you so much. Barbara, this has been a great presentation. Thank you very much for the suggestions for making an impact in our organizations. I know the attendees will go back to their desks and try to implement some of these. We're glad you could join us today. A special thank you to LexisNexis, the sponsor of this SLA Partner Talk. Attendees, the recording of this presentation, the link to it will be emailed to you in a couple of days, so you can refer back to it and all the great information. If you want to know more about the white paper, please contact Mary Frericks. Her email is right there on the screen. And everyone, thank you for attending today. You may now disconnect.
Thank you very much.